love, and longing. "I'm sorry, you're what?" Finri Gore demands into her communicator. She had just gotten back on shift in time to receive a call. Apparently, sorcerers could downright imprint on you, or maybe it's a human thing. Either way, that human sorcerer she had met while dealing with more Barliss and Harkle madness had clearly remembered her. "I'm going to intercept the Barliss and Harkle as both sides are getting ready to fight. I'm calling you to get ahead of any panic, because although I will not be causing long-term damage to anyone, it's going to be scary." "Scary how?" "I'm using religious text as inspiration." "What?" "The Bible, to be accurate, Exodus." "I have no idea what that means." "It means it's going to be very scary around where the Barliss and Harkle are going to fight, and I want to avoid a public panic. So when I call back to tell you where they're heading, I'd like you to at least send out an official warning. Just tell me what's about to happen. That depends on them. I'm going to start with words. And when that's not enough, there will be darkness during the day. A darkness so deep that they will not be able to see their own flames." "Are you telling me that the darkness of the forest is at your command?" "Actually, let's roll with that. It sounds better than the absurd amount of study and calculation I had to do." Vernon remarks, and she raises an eyebrow. "What did you study?" "A book biology, and on that terrifying note, I leave thee." "Oh, no you don't. Narrow it down." "All right, I studied the eyes, the skin, and the vocal cords. But I do need to go. Having the kids in a completely unknown place is really agitating the Barliss and Harkle. They're heading to the eastern half of Meridor. I need to go, it's interception time. Send the warning." Vernon answers and hangs up. "Meridor? Shit. That's the next jurisdiction over," Finri Gore says before quickly calling her cousin. She's the head dispatcher in that area and can hopefully help cut down on whatever the hell is coming next. "Keep moving. We know they've set up a stash near our own. We're going to raid it and slaughter every wretched Harkle there. We need to—" "Halt!" A booming voice echoes around them. It is deep and male and seems to have no actual source. "I am a sorcerer of the Dark Forest, and I tell you to turn back. Your children are not kidnapped by your rival clan. They are in the care of my brethren. Turn back. I will not have the families of our youngest brothers butcher each other. The Harkle are here, and they send some paid whore to lie to us. Come, it's time we get our payment in blood," she bellows out as she raises her sword. There are calls for blood, calls she hears from the nearby, but unseen Harkle. "For the final time I call upon you to think for your children with words alone. Wage war this day, and there shall be consequences unending." The voice calls again, but no one listens. "All right. Time to do this," Vernon says to himself as both groups hear the sound of the other's bloodlust and race towards them. He reaches upwards, upwards, and upwards. In the sky above are thin wisps of vapor, nigh invisible on this seemingly cloudless day. Within the vapor are the smallest of seeds and spores, humble things, delicate things that are borne aloft by the tumbling of the winds. Between the sun and the families, Harkle and Barliss are only a small handful of spore and spindly seed dancing in the wind. But they're enough. His hands outstretched close, and he casts darkness into the day. The seeds and spores suddenly projecting a widening field that shifts and empowers the light of the sun to pour down only in frequencies invisible to the Apuk eye. There are cries of distress and panic from both groups as they attempt to breathe fire to see by, but the sheer amount of distorted wavelength fight against and swiftly defeat the new source. "And so I bring darkness to this day. For the sake of thy children, turn around and go the other way. You have suffered the least version of the 10th plague, and now the full consequence of the 9th unless you turn back. Sheathe your weapons and seek peace, or plague anew shall arise. 8 more blows I have to strike, or will sense rule the day." A plasma blast, invisible in the darkness, is launched from the Harkle to the Barliss. It's retaliated with thrown knives, arrows, and plasma. They can still hear each other and fight. He closes his eyes tightly and sighs. Of course. Then I bring to you a plague of greater insects to strip you of your possessions. Let us see war continue with only rags to hide your nakedness and only fists to strike your foes. He then has an entire fluttering swarm from the dark forest fly off of him and his presence. These insects don't actually eat cloth or metal, but with some reinforcement on their pincers and jaws, they can bite through metal and easily shear through cloth and hair. There are screams and panic as the women desperately flail against a blanket of titanium jaw locust, iron-jawed beetle, and scissoring mouth moth, stripping them bare and reducing their hair to a bare stubble. The moment a weapon is let go of or enough of it is sheared away, they shift to clothing. Turn back now! Leave while you still have dignity to preserve. Your weapons are devoured, your armor torn asunder. Turn back and... Both sides charge each other. He frowns. Damn, they are stubborn. Not that he really expected otherwise, but a pleasant surprise would be nice. Then let the plagues continue. The insects are returned to the dark forest and the enhancement on their mandibles is allowed to pass. Not that Vernon can't feel the forest itself paying attention. He's teaching it new tricks. He reaches up his hands again and starts churning the air beneath the spores and seeds, casting his darkness, unbalancing parts of it, stripping the heat from others and ever-churning the winds as things form. He clenches his fists and pulls downwards as a blast of lightning, invisible to sight but still just as terrifying, slams down between the Barleys and Harcool and overpowers their screams of rage. Both sides are blaming the other for him being here, but the hail crashing down from above after the bolt of power drives them all to throw their hands over their heads to try and shelter themselves. Once more, I command you both to turn aside from your foolish wrath. Go home, nurse your wounds and think of your children. They are safe, they are cared for. But if you throw your lives away, they will lose you and you them. For our children, we must fight, someone yells, and both sides cheer it. For a moment, Vernon is hopeful that they'll realize that they have common ground, but both sides merely use that as a way to find each other and charge even through the hailstones. Fine then. Plan C, he says to himself as he concentrates. His hands begin to fill with silt and sand as he focuses. Then he hurls the imbued element into the maelstrom of darkness and hail. More lightning crashes down to blur the lines and cause confusion as the screaming begins. The sand and silt whirl around, and wherever they land, they bounce off and leave behind a painful boil and sore. The features of both sides are blurred further in the panic as they are all brought to greater pain. Turn back and turn away, lest these boils and wounds be the least of your concerns. Return to your homes and nurse your wounds. End the foolish war. The shrapnel remains of their weapons are discovered, and with improvised knives, both sides seek to murder anew. Then, if the pain of scorched skin and falling hail means nothing to you, then let us show you the pain of beasts, Vernon shouts out. I give you 3 plagues. A plague of beasts, a plague of flies, and a plague of biting gnats. The rooting calls of furious parrots scream out as unending buzzing fills the air. There are screams, there is decrying and curses, and still, whenever Apuk is near Apuk, they lash out with hope to wound the other family. But the confusion is so heavy that they struggle to tell each other apart. The gnats focus their attention on the throats of the Apuk and agitate them, rendering their voices hoarse and unrecognizable. Plan C is coming along nicely. 2 more plagues remain. If you do not turn back now, then the poisonous skin of dark forest toads will be in all places. You will be numb to your own bodies, unknowing if your limbs are shattered or whole. Turn back now. There is raspy protest and coarse curses flung out in response, and the flies and gnats and parrots are all sent home. In their places are thousands upon thousands of hopping forms with toxic skin that numbs and rubs. To an apuk, they're numbing and destroy the coordination of the self. To a human, it leaves the skin feeling slightly off. Koga loved the things and had been deliberately feeding wild populations to boost the numbers. Vernon had a distinct feeling he'll catch hell if too many of them get crushed by the failing, panicked, and confused apuk below. He feels movement behind him and doesn't have to turn to know that the police are interested. "Hello, officers. What the hell are you doing?" Divine wrath on two armies of idiots who would hurt my youngest brothers through their stupidity. Divine wrath? Divinely inspired at any rate, Vernon says as he brings up his communicator and taps through it a bit to bring up the quotes. "The 10 plagues of Egypt?" the officer demands. "Modified to be more focused and less deadly. After a bit of rain, what I've done here today will wash away with ease, at least physically. These idiots need to learn something." "Learn what?" "That they're killing themselves and no one else. This is my third of many plans. Plan 1 was just to get them to leave. Plan 2 was to scare them off. Plan 3? A painful lesson. Plan 4? She asks. Kidnapping. And 5? She asks, and he laughs lowly. Fucking sorcerers, she mutters, and he laughs harder. All right, enough fun. Back to work, Vernon says before holding his shoulders back and taking a deep breath. Numbed, wounded, clad in naught but rags and trapped in darkness. 9 plagues you have faced. From the loss of your children to the loss of your sense of touch, you have no dignity left. You have no cause to fight. Let go of the shards of metal and turn away. Go home. Go home and find succor, or stay. Stay and find another plague falling upon you. There is a rasping, coarse battle cry from both sides, as apparently they didn't actually understand the true purpose of the numbing toads, and were taking the relief from pain as encouragement to keep fighting. Wait, death of the firstborn? What are you about to? The officer demands. They're modified and I'm going backwards. Their children in protective custody counts as the first, Vernon assures here, which means this last one I'm doing is exactly what they both want, blood. Then he connects to a river in the dark forest with a complicated bit of axiom trickery. This has to move so fast and hard that for the first time in this debacle there's a disruption as a literal river of blood shoots out of his mouth and cascades as a stinking crimson waterfall into the darkness. At first there are calls of encouragement, but he's closed the edges of the darkness, and as the blood begins to pool, the triumph turns to panic and then fear as it reaches waist height. It only speeds up as the waters move, and inside the darkness, numbed, nearly naked and with their bodies beaten and voices reduced to a rasp, the Barleys and Harcool alike are caught in a maelstrom of alien blood that rises higher and higher as it stirs them together, until it suddenly fills the somehow enclosed area, and they're cast beneath the surface no matter how strong a swimmer they are. The waters churn and woman is bounced off woman. Then they clutch at each other in a desperate fervor to survive, and suddenly the blood falls away and there is air to breathe once more. Vernon sighs as he drains away most of the blood and converts it back into water for the forest to drink. That was a hard one. The darkness fades away and the women are revealed as vaguely apuk-shaped lumps of glistening blood-covered wretches. The clumps clinging to them that used to be their clothing, the raised boils and sores on their faces and bodies and rasped voices have rendered them nearly identical to each other. Before any of them can rise to continue the madness, there is a thump, and they all feel the ground beneath them jump. It's Vernon. 10 plagues. Change so it wouldn't simply wipe out your idiot families, he says as he begins walking among them. The women shift to try and watch him, but the numbness, exhaustion, and building terror kill coordination, and no one can rise higher than their knees. And for what? You have been stripped of your children for your endless madness, and still you fought. I plunged you into a choking darkness, and still you fought. The greater insects of the woods devoured your clothing, your weapons, and hair. By the goddess, the officer says as she approaches the area with her eyes wide. An entire length of a block has the street drenched in blood with hundreds of moaning and barely aware people trying to rise as the sorcerer rants. I opened the sky and hurled bolts of lightning to overpower your cries for blood and dropped hail upon your heads, hoping you would have the sense to seek shelter rather than slaughter. But your thirst for blood would not slake. So I tore open sores upon your flesh and cast boils upon you. But that was not enough. So I brought 3 at once, beasts and flies and stinging insects. The brutality of broken bones, of sheer raw disgust, and being devoured and having your throats rendered raw was still not enough to end your stupidity. So I ripped the ability to coordinate and command your limbs with an army of toxic toads. But it wasn't enough. You still wanted blood. Someone tries to speak up and he gives her a glare. I have given you blood then, an entire river of blood. Tell me, does it feel good? Is it not what you wanted, to be coated in the blood of another after a brutal battle? Well, not like... Someone tries to wheeze out. Not like this? Not how you thought it would be? Well, how did you expect this to happen? You came here to slaughter members of your own family. How did you think this would end in anything other than disgusting, pointless brutality? They're not. We're not. They're the enemy. One of the women manages to rise to her feet in rage and staggers a bit. Then point to one. Tell me what makes her the enemy. If you have the strength to hit her, I won't stop you. Not even if you can kill, Vernon says. Excuse me? The officer demands. Calm down. This is an important part of the lesson, he says as the standing woman staggers to a nearby Apuk who has struggled to be on anything other than hands or knees. She manages to grab a sharp bit of metal and raises it up. Vernon then speaks up again. Are you certain she's your enemy? Her response is to grab the weaker Apuk's horn and hold up the shiv high. The helpless woman spits at her. For the Harkul. She wheezes out past bruised ribs and the standing Apuk goes still. You're... She lets go of the horn and wipes at the other Apuk's face. She drops the shiv. Cousin, I couldn't. It's worse than that, Vernon calls out as everyone sees the spectacle. Some generations ago, your families more or less traded infant sons, each side kidnapping the other and then raising them to hate their original family. They were then married in while forsaking the name, but carrying the blood. Are you telling me these insane women have been slaughtering their own family? Stupid, isn't it? Vernon asks. So go ahead. Slaughter each other. You're covered in blood as you want, and you can kill your own families as much as you like. Go right ahead. You're insane, the officer accuses him. There's a method to my madness, Vernon says, before he starts prowling among the Gurs again and hauls them up to their feet and puts sharp metal in their hands. Come on then! You wanted to kill! Then kill! You're surrounded by cousins and sisters and aunts and nieces, just like before. Kill away! Kill until there's nothing left. Come on then! You all wanted slaughter. So slaughter! Remove your families from the land. You endured divinely inspired wrath for this. Come on now! Do it! None of them dares hold on to the shivs he's handing out. What's the matter? I had to force you to stop, and now that you have the chance to start again, you refuse? Where is the hatred? Where is the loathing? Come now, Barlis. The Harkul are all around you. So what if you kill a few of your own as you do it? Slaughter them. Right, Harkul? The Barlis are here. So what if your sisters are too? Kill them all and let the gods sort them out. That's what you wanted, right? The two groups slowly part from each other, shuffling away and helping one another to rise as they slowly peel apart. Harkul and Barlis both heading home. Good. Finally some sense, Vernon says before reaching up. There is a slight echo, and above there is a rumble. All look upwards as the day dims ever so, and rain begins to fall. washing away the blood and the toxin of the toads, soothing the rising boils and sores and comforting both sides. "Do you think this will work?" the officer asks him after he lowers his hands again and the rains slow to a finish. Maybe not. They're not going to forget it anytime soon, though, and it will make them more reluctant to fight each other. Vernon answers. "What would you have done if they did try to kill each other?" she asks him. "The blood they were covered in was mine. I could have stopped them at any moment." "Okay, one last question. It doesn't have to be the last." "Good, because I need to know how the hell do I report this without sounding insane. Plead mercy via act of sorcerer?" he asks, and she flattens a look at him. "A sorcerer trying to imitate God? A normal sorcerer is bad enough. A divinely inspired one is not something I'm ready to deal with." "Sorry. I needed to get the message of peace across, and the Father of the Prince of Peace's playbook seemed like a good place to start." "What the hell about this was peaceful?" "They're not fighting anymore. I'd call that peaceful," Vernon replies, and the officer is now making strangling motions and trying to rein in her temper.